Taiwanese American entrepreneurs are one of the most successful groups of entrepreneurs. YouTube, Twitch, there's so many examples. And when you look here locally at what the entrepreneurship scene looks like, I think that it's not really comparable.
All right, can you just briefly introduce yourself?
My name is Clayton Jacobs. I am an entrepreneur. I'm the founder and CEO of CreatorDB. I'm originally from the US, but I've been in Taiwan for 5 years now.
What brought you to Taiwan specifically?
Yeah, so I was living in Shenzhen before. I was living in China. Since I knew I wanted to be a founder one day and I knew that I wanted to have my own business, to me it didn't make a lot of sense to be building up connections in China, because if you're a foreign entrepreneur, you can only ever own up to 49% of a company in China. And so when I kind of had an opportunity to come out to Taiwan. It's a small island I'd never been before, but I moved here without ever having visited.
Whoa, that's brave.
I got a job offer on Friday night at dinner, and I was in Taipei on Sunday morning.
Oh, wow.
And I was in the office on Monday. It's like 100, 120 people total, like 40 or 50 which was in Taipei, and I was the only Westerner. I got to learn a lot about, not just Taiwanese working culture, but how to effectively communicate with Taiwanese engineers. They tend to be more successful with more direction, or even prefer more direction. Whereas in the US, you often deal with many conflicting opinions at every stage of decision making.
Do you feel like in this talent pool in Taiwan, the education system trains people to have that kind of ambiguity and those critical thinking skills and communication, or is it something that as a boss you have to kind of foster in people?
I don't think that any school system really sets that up. So I don't think it's purely a Taiwanese educational failure, even though it can kind of be exacerbated here. It seems like, there's a strong focus on memorization. There's a strong focus on learning how to take an English test for the sake of passing the test, as opposed to learning English, for example. One of the biggest detriments is a training or a teaching to not have risk tolerance. So like Taiwanese American entrepreneurs are one of the most successful groups of entrepreneurs. YouTube, Twitch, there's so many examples. And when you look here locally at what the entrepreneurship scene looks like, I think that it's not really comparable.
You mentioned that you dropped out of high school, or you dropped out of college. Okay. Yeah. Would you recommend that path to other people?
Not going to school are both options that should be both evaluated. I had a clear idea of what I wanted to accomplish. But I think that for a lot of people, it's much better to be lost or confused in a university environment that has a ton of resources to potentially push you down a path than to be lost and confused in just the real world open market, because it's a lot more harsh.
It's pretty impressive you were able to, prove yourself in that way at such a young age.
It was always a challenge walking into a conference room and being 19 years old. And being in China at that age, it's especially a society that puts respect on people who are the older individuals. That was always a challenge, and I still see it now, honestly. Half the reason I wear a mustache and beard is just to make myself look older. That's why I grew it in the first place.
Yeah. And going in there and you didn't have an education, was that also kind of another way that you had to prove yourself and overcome that?
Honestly, no. I think that I kind of got a pass for not being from within that culture. And I think I get the same pass in Taiwan. I think that there is an advantage for being a foreigner in those cases where the same cultural expectations aren't put on me that they would put on other people my age that grew up in this culture. And so I think that when they see me, they see much more of the glamorized image of like the American dropout entrepreneur.
Oh, interesting.
And, I think that image resonates with them more, as opposed to if their own kid was trying that shit, they would cut it out immediately.
You're going back to Bushi behind.
Yeah.
And how did you even get this idea to make this kind of service?
The way I would compare our company in the early days is, what Nielsen used to do for TVs and sort of ranking how popular different shows are. We're doing that for all of social media. So instead of 200 TV channels, we're looking at 3.5 million social media channels.
Yeah.
And you know, there's just an endless rabbit hole of the different analytics that you can be looking at. And so for someone from like a data background, it's super exciting.
Yeah,
it's a really fun problem.
Yeah.
But what was funny is for, I think, our first 8 employees, none of us had a marketing background.
Oh, wow.
I was running a marketing company, and we were all working for a marketing company. None of us had a marketing background. A lot of our backgrounds were from data or from engineering or something like that.
Huh. And how did you guys make that work then?
I think a lot of our early customers kind of liked that idea, is because we weren't trying to sell the same stuff that every other marketing agency angled person was trying to sell. We were trying to sell the idea of a specific approach and treating this like a data science as opposed to treating it like a creative art. 如果有一个人要这边上班，他们需要说英文，因为有一些的人不会说中文。
所以你会推荐想要搬到台湾，在这边上班，你觉得他们应该学中文吗？
有点难的问题，因为我觉得如果要来台湾，我觉得你应该学习中文，因为要去餐厅，要找朋友，每个东西都比较方便。可是上班的时候，可以帮你聊天，跟你的同事们。可是他们常常说很快，有点难听得懂他们的意思。还是他们说成语。如果在台湾要找公司，我觉得你可以说一点点的中文，就是还 OK。But you would have to make a huge leap to very fluent for it to be useful in a work environment. There are so many more local Taiwanese who are talented at speaking English than foreigners who are talented at speaking Chinese. The challenges of starting a business here are just so bureaucratic when it comes to registering a company, capitalizing, banking. For somebody who hasn't spent time in Taiwan, if they were looking at these systems, I would find them extremely unattractive. It's an ongoing challenge. I've heard the government talk about this issue as well, but I haven't seen significant change.
Would you consider choosing a different country now that you know the process of how unfriendly it is to start a business here?
Probably not. I do think that this is a great place to be starting a company for a lot of reasons. I think that the local engineering talent is probably the best in the world in terms of effectiveness versus cost. I mean, there are great engineers in California, but those engineers are also asking $300,000, $500,000 a year. And I think that something else that's interesting, especially when I come at it from an American perspective, is when you're a startup in San Francisco and you recruit good talent, you have to be constantly afraid that talent is going to go to another company because there's some new cool thing and they're offering to pay them in crypto, and there's all that. But like for us, we've had one person leave in the whole history of running the business.
Whoa.
So we've had extremely low employee churn.
I feel that like working for a foreign company is just desirable and cool in and of itself. What do you think the attitude towards that for your Taiwanese employees are?
I think the coolness factor helps with recruiting.
Yeah.
But, you know, after you're 3 months into a job, you don't care how cool it is. You care about how you're getting treated, how you're getting paid, and what your job is like. It just has to do with not sort of stuck in that traditional mindset. People don't want to be treated badly. And I think that they want a boss that's not going to scream at their face.
It's kind of an advantage to be here because the cost of like rent, the cost of labor is cheaper in Taiwan.
Yeah, absolutely. We've gone from 5 people to 12 people to 35 people at the end of each year. The cost structure here just makes that more possible. I think that globalization is definitely enabling that, as you know, we have a lot of people who are very talented, very educated, speak fluently in multiple languages that, you know, why not Taipei?
It's a great question. Why not Taipei?
Yeah, so I say yes, Taipei. You got to have a plan so you can manage not only the workload, but also the stress. I still have to have time to go out with my friends, you know, do fun stuff.
Go to the JD. It's right there. It's on the 3rd floor. We can go right after this.
It's funny because when you're going down the elevator on Friday nights, you're often met with some companions.